Hello, all. I hope that everyone is having a wonderful um, day today. Um, First of all, I want to tell people that yes, I am okay. Uh, I know there were. Hold on. There we go. Um, I know that there were tornadoes that a lot of you probably heard about earlier this week, and I am okay. The building that I am in was not damaged. I didn't even know that a tornado had touched down until uh, Tuesday morning, I think it was, or maybe it was Monday. So it's been an interesting week, but I'm doing okay. So thanks everybody for asking. Everything is okay here. Um, So today I want to talk a little bit about some news that came out earlier this week, and I want to clear up a few things. Now, first of all, I want to say that I am in no way trying to bash anyone or call anyone out, and I want to tell people that it is okay to be excited about the news that broke out on Wednesday. But I want to, and I realize that I probably contributed to this because, I made a post on Facebook talking about how excited I was. However, I want to talk about uh, realistic expectations, okay? And I want to talk about why I think some people's expectations are too high. And I understand that you have high expectations, but I want to prepare people for the reality. And like I said, I'm not trying to call anybody out. I am just as excited as a lot of blind people are. Sorry if you hear any noise above me. The guy above me is walking around. Um, but anyway, but that's beside the point. So, and by the way, I have to say that things have been a whole lot quieter around here ever since he moved in. He's been very quiet, and he's been very. I think everybody in the building appreciates that. Um, but anyway, so what news am I talking about? You might ask. So on Wednesday, Nintendo announced the Nintendo Switch 2. And what caused a lot of people to get excited was the fact that there was going to be text-to-speech built in. There was going to be a screen reader built in that would read the interface and read the menus and on-screen things and stuff like that. And a lot of people, myself included, said it's about time. Because it is. It is about time. So, but here is the thing that I want to talk about. And I am not diminishing the fact that this is a significant step forward. Okay? I'm not diminishing that fact. I just need to tell people what it will be like probably for the first year or two. The thing is that the idea of blind people playing video games has really only taken off in the past few years. There were some of us, myself included, who we tried. Okay, I grew up trying to play games on the original Sony PlayStation, and not knowing a lot of the menus and in the games and stuff like that, and just trying to play, knowing that I probably wasn't doing very good. And I played that. My cousin had a Nintendo, an NES, an SNES, and an N64, and a Sega Genesis. I didn't like the Sega Genesis. I won't go there. And so I would try to play stuff on his console too. And, there was, I also had an Xbox 360 for about I think it was about a year. Maybe it was a little bit more. I had an Xbox 360. So, blind people playing mainstream games is relatively new. And the thing is that a lot of people are not used to the idea that blind people are trying to play video games. I remember when I was in college meeting some girls who played video games, and they were astonished that I was even trying to play the Xbox 360. I remember very well, they were not demeaning about it. They were just impressed that I was even trying. Here's the thing. You can't expect, and I fully expect, okay, because I know what this is going to be like. Probably know what this is going to be like. You cannot expect, just because Nintendo is coming out with an interface, is making the interface of the console accessible, it's going to be a while before truly accessible games with talking menus and talking screens and whatever start coming out. It's just, that's the reality. I know that a lot of people, grew up with Nintendo and they're excited. And again, you have every right to be excited. I am excited, okay? But here's the thing. I'm going to talk about my own personal experiences in mainstream gaming real quick. So, I came into the idea of blind people playing mainstream gaming consoles fairly late in the push. Back in, because I had an original PlayStation, and I quit playing it around 2005 or early 2006. I would play it off and on throughout high school, but then I just quit playing it, and my parents ultimately got rid of it. I played it. It was intended for me and my sisters, but I wound up playing it most of the time. And I did not, gaming did not really cross my mind after that, because I was at 2 different centers for the blind. I was at 2 different training centers doing training programs. And I was also in the middle of, that was when I was had become a diehard thrill seeker and ride fanatic, and that was really all I cared about. And then I rediscovered my love for the pipe organ. I rediscovered my love for the pipe organ and got back into that as well. So I wasn't really thinking about it. In 2009, there used to be a podcast called Blind Cool Tech. And I didn't get into the whole podcasting thing until 2006, when my parents finally got a DSL connection. And Liam Irvin did a podcast about the Xbox 360. And I think it was Clement Chow did a podcast about the PS3. And I was impressed that they were navigating their way around the consoles and whatever, and, memorizing the menus and whatever, but I didn't think anything about it. Because I remember I had applied for a job in Wichita, Kansas at the time, and I was going through the trial period that company was requiring, and ultimately I didn't get hired, but that's another story in itself. I won't go there. But I didn't really think about it, because I wasn't really that interested in gaming consoles. Now, my parents had gotten us a Wii, a Nintendo Wii, And I remember thinking that the motion activated controllers were a neat idea. And I even played some. In fact, I learned how to play Wii Tennis and could play a mean game. And how did I play Wii Tennis, you might ask? Well, by what I found was that by listening to certain sounds, I could calculate when I needed to actually move the controller. Although I did move the controller constantly to make sure that I was doing everything correctly. But what I learned how to do was time certain swings, and I actually got quite good at it. But I wasn't really interested in the Wii either. And at that time I just wasn't really into it, and I didn't really have an interest in doing that. And I had also, I started college in 2010, and I really wasn't a fan of stuff. And I want to say that I really feel that we have to make a toss-up here, okay? Do we want to be stuck with substandard, low-quality, quote-unquote, games for the blind? And I'm going to be honest with you, I think most of the games that are developed for blind people are not that good. And I don't think they ever have been that good. I remember the days when a game called Grizzly Gulch Western Extravaganza was considered one of the coolest games around. We played it all the time on computers at the school when I was at the School for the Blind. And there were the games developed by Jim Kitchen, which were actually very good games. Those were actually very good games. Mach 1, Pong, Trucker, those were good games. I recognize that back in the early 2000s, that was all we had. We had games like that. And I didn't even know that other blind people were trying to play mainstream games at that time. It wasn't really a thing. But the toss-up is, do we want to stay in the universe of games developed specifically for the blind, or do we want to step out and at least try to play mainstream games and try to fit in? Even if we screw up and are lousy at it, I can tell you that, there were many times when I played certain games where I knew I wasn't that good. When I tried to do Punch Out or Track and Field on the regular Nintendo, the Track and Field, I couldn't get past the freaking the hurdles. And when I played it on the Xbox 360, I still struggled with it. But the thing is, do we want to be stuck in that universe, or do we want to at least try? So fast forward to 2011. I met, or should I say like 2010, right? But I would say like right before I started college, okay? I met a guy who I'm still friends with named Jesse. And he and I had started talking, and I can't remember how we started talking to each other. I honestly can't remember, but we used to talk to each other over Skype all the time. And he was the one that eventually convinced me to get an iPhone. He and Shane Jackson over at Adventures in Blind Videography. They were the ones that convinced a lot of us to get iPhones. And whatever. This was when the iPhone first became accessible. So when I found out that Jesse was trying to play a PS3, I remembered the podcast that Clement had done and the podcast that Liam had done on the PS3 and the Xbox, respectively. But I wasn't that interested in buying consoles, even then, and even when, although I did get into following more mainstream game developments. I did get. There was a podcast called Game On that I caught the last couple of weeks of before it ended. That was very unfortunate that that podcast ended because they had so much fun, and I used to enjoy listening to them. So, fast forward about 3 years to 2013. I had talked, and by then I had was talking to another guy named Josh, and I was talking to him and to Jesse, and I Josh had told me, the best one right now is Xbox 360 because you can buy games through a web browser and download, and then they download to your Xbox and whatever, and you can memorize the menus and do all that. And so I went back and listened to Liam's podcast, and I got help from a couple of people, and learned my way around the Xbox 360 interface to what I needed to do. And I remember when Injustice: Gods Among Us came out, and being excited about it and buying the game, and also trying my hand at NHL 14 and making an absolute idiot of myself trying. But I really felt like I was fitting in, and people were listening to the fact that I was trying to play, and I even had sighted friends who were offering to give me tips and whatever. I remember I had a friend in college, Hannah, who was trying to help me with Resident Evil 6. She offered to co-op with me. Now, that ultimately did not happen. And that ultimately didn't happen for other reasons. It wasn't anything bad. It was just we wound up not playing. We wound up not playing each other. So we wound up not helping because I lost touch with Hannah after the spring 2012 or after the fall 2012 semester. I lost touch with Hannah, but she also tried to encourage me to play Skyrim and a game called The Elder Scrolls Skyrim, and I won't go into. I did not play that one, but anyway, I bought it, but then I wound up not playing it. So, and then Josh introduced me to a couple of other people that were trying to do this, including Brandon Cole, memory eternal. We lost him way too soon. He died in June of last year. Again, memory eternal. In fact, I featured Brandon on a podcast that I did back in the day. I think it was 2015. And I featured him and Josh to talk about PS3 and Xbox respectively. Now, at that point, I had stopped playing Xbox because I didn't have a TV with stereo speakers. And so it was very, very hard to try and play games. Josh was on Skype with me for some very memorable failures. Like the first time I tried to play NHL 14, and the commentator at the end of the game was like, I was playing as the Anaheim Ducks, and he goes, and he says, and the Anaheim Ducks, I don't know how they played this game, but they managed to play without even touching the puck. And Josh could not stop laughing. And looking back on it, I don't blame him. It was funny. It was embarrassing at the time, but it was funny. And then of course, when I tried to play NBA 2K and kept getting shot clock violations and stuff like that. But, so, and then Josh pointed me to Brandon's website, and I learned it was a community of people, a small one, that were trying to play mainstream video games. And I supported them. Even after I quit playing the Xbox, I supported them fully. So fast forward a few years, and in 2020, I believe it was 2022, or maybe it could have been 2022, or maybe it was 2021. I was now gainfully employed, and there was big news coming out that a game called The Last of Us was being made accessible on PS5. Now, by this point, Narrator had been on consoles since the Xbox One. But again, I wasn't really interested in acquiring a console. And then came The Last of Us. And The Last of Us Part 2. No, actually, it was The Last of Us Part 2 first, and then it was The Last of Us later, I think. If anybody remembers, correct me if I'm wrong, it has been a very long time. Okay, so please cut me some slack. But my interest perked up, and I'm like, okay, this sounds like it will be. This is a huge step forward. And again, it was thanks to Brandon Cole and several others that consulted with the game developer about making these games accessible, Last of Us and Last of Us Part 2. And I had also heard about, several, games that were accessible, just they were at least playable if you were willing to memorize stuff. And so I was willing to give it a try. And then I found out that one of my favorite games from the original PlayStation, Star Wars Demolition, had been released as part of the PlayStation Plus Premium catalog for the PS5. Now, Star Wars Demolition was playable. Most of the important menus talked. The main menus did not wrap, and so it was very easy to figure out where you were. And it was also it had great stereo sound, so it was easy to tell where your opponents were. There were also features that you could use that could help you, like your super chart, your each character's special weapon, and stuff like that had advantages and disadvantages and whatever. And it became one of my favorite games. I can remember playing against people. This was back in the days of wired controllers, and I can remember playing against people and absolutely loving that game. And when Jesse told me that game was out for a limited time, I decided, okay, enough of this. I'm going to buy a PS5. And so I decided right then and there. So my birthday was coming up, and my parents had kept asking me, what do you want for your birthday? What do you want for your birthday? And whatever. And I didn't know. Well, a couple of days before my birthday in 2023, I got selected by Amazon to purchase a PS5. The PS5 back in those days was so popular that they were inviting people by lottery. Basically, you put your name in a pool, and you would get, and those who were selected were invited to purchase the game. This was on Amazon, and so I got selected, completely unexpected. And so I told my parents, I said, okay, look, can I have, I want to get a PS5. I have to be the one to buy it because I had been selected. And so I said, if you could give me $500, then you will have bought my birthday present. And they did. And I know that several other people, Josh had beta tested the screen reader for PS5, and I think several other people had too. And so I was prepared to get it started, and Jesse volunteered to help me set it up if I needed to. But I was actually able to get it set up completely independently, which was very nice. And then about a month later, I decided to buy an Xbox Series S because a lot of blind gamers by that time had switched to Xbox because of Game Pass, and which basically, you get a bunch of free games, and if it and if it turns out you can't play them, you just uninstall them, and it's no big deal. So I got the Xbox, and I had heard about, again, another accessible Xbox game called As Dusk Falls, which I remember staying up all night for several weekend nights playing that game and getting chills. I mean, that game is just, that game is psychologically terrifying. It is a scary game. And we're not even talking, I'm not talking about horror in the traditional sense. I'm talking about like psychological, like ethics and, the things that you have to decide in that game, and what sacrifices are you going to make that could have very serious consequences, and stuff like that. And the things what your results would sometimes give you. I mean, it was scary. But I also enjoyed on the Xbox being able to try to play the games that I used to play on Xbox 360. So, I have had a PS5 and an Xbox for 2 years. Now, granted, I have not played games since the week before I got my implant last August. And I probably should get back into doing it because this is my new reality, having an implant, and there's no point sitting around and moping that you can't play video games the way you used to. I need to learn to cope with it. So I'm going to sign back into my Xbox and PS accounts probably next weekend. That's when I am thinking about doing it. But anyway, I say all that. Well, and I had also tried to do some PC games from 2017 to about 2019. I did Microsoft Flight Simulator. I did with some mods that made it playable. I did Jackbox Party Pack. I did a couple of games like that. But I say all that to say this. Okay? We have a very long way to go before every single video game is accessible. And I do not think that every single video game will be made completely accessible, 100% playable, even like one day. And it's not because of anything to do with society. It's just realistic. The idea that blind people are even trying to play video games has really, like I said, only taken off in the past couple of years. I mean, I think the biggest development in the world of accessible gaming took place in 2023 when Forza Motorsport came out for the Xbox, thanks to the work of Brandon Cole and many others. That it became accessible, and also Mortal Kombat 1, which I have always struggled with because of my hearing loss. Mortal Kombat 1 has always been very hard for me to play, but I found that I'm better at the invasions mode than I am at the regular storyline. But I say all that to say this. What is going on with Nintendo right now is a huge step in the right direction. But at the same time, we need to remember that this is a company that is new to the whole accessible console market. And I do not think that a lot of games will be playable. I mean, will be completely accessible with talking screens and whatever for at least a year or two. So the thing that I would caution people, am I going to get one? Yes, I will. Mainly to play the old classics. You know, if it turns out that the Nintendo Switch Online Classics services will work with the screen reader built into the console, I'm going to play a bunch of the old classics that I used to try to play. But like I said, I say all that to say this. Realistically, you cannot expect the entire catalog of games for the Switch 2 to be accessible out of the box. This is a new thing for a lot of big companies, is game accessibility. And I do think that we have come an incredibly long way. I think that what Nintendo is doing is good. I mean, the question is, will they stay committed? I think they will. I hope they do. But but it is not realistic to expect that every game will be accessible out of the box, and it is not realistic to expect that even game screens will be read immediately. I can tell you right now that in most games on Xbox and PS5, we still have to memorize menus. Blind players still have to memorize menus and button presses and stuff like that for how we want to do things. Has it gotten better? Absolutely. But we're not to the point where console screen readers can read game screens. And I think because there's so many developers making different games for these consoles, I don't think that is going to be the case, at least for a while. So the thing that I would tell people, and this is something that I should have said, okay, when I made my Facebook post earlier this week, that we shouldn't expect everything to work right away. I mean, like I said, most of the games that I have on PS5 or on Xbox, excuse me, they don't have talking menus. They don't have a lot of that stuff. But I know my way around, having learned the interfaces. And that's something that I think a lot of people are going to have to do. Is you're going to have to learn the control buttons. You're going to have to learn what buttons do what in each game. And you're going to have to learn a lot about how these things work. And I am not saying that people are incapable of learning, because you're not. Okay? But this is not going to be, I think, what a lot of people think it is going to be. And this video was partially done in response to someone saying, oh yeah, I think you're going to be a little bit disappointed in the accessibility. And so I decided to do a video, and so that's why I decided to do this. I am not disappointed. I am not disappointed. I understand why, if you haven't been in the space of the Sony and Xbox consoles that have had screen readers for the past few years, I understand where you're coming from. But this is a big step forward. The fact that all three game consoles are now going to have screen readers. All three current generation consoles are going to have screen readers. But I think that it is going to take a little bit of time before these games start becoming accessible. Now, I personally don't know how some of Nintendo's games can be made accessible. I really don't. I don't know how some of their newer stuff can be made accessible. I mean, Mario Kart, from what I've been told, is open world, and that helps some. That will help blind gamers out some. But and I have heard that there are some blind people that have managed to play Animal Crossing. How they did it, I don't know. I heard that there were some people that said that it was accessible purely by the sounds it makes. But so that's how I feel about it. Am I excited? Heck, yes, I am. Am I going to get one? Yes, because I want to watch this evolve. Um, you know, and I fully support developers that do commit to making their games accessible, but it is going to be slow going for mainstream developers. It still is slow going. I mean, there's an independent game that is available on Xbox and PS5 called Brock the Investigator, and I said that on purpose because it's set in a future where humans can basically put animal parts. They can become part animals, and the game centers around an investigator who is like a human alligator hybrid, I think, if I remember correctly. I haven't played it in a while, but so don't be less excited just because games are not going to be usable right out of the box. They probably will become that way over the next year or two. We'll just have to see how well Nintendo is committed to keeping this. All we can do is watch and hope. So, I understand that you may be disappointed that you may not be able to play games right away, but some games right away. But what I can tell you is that I think that this is a major step in the right direction. And I think it can only get better from here. Even if it takes a little while. We have to be patient with these companies because, like I said, mainstream game accessibility is a relatively new idea. And it is not, companies are trying to get used to it. They're trying to, I appreciate all the advocates that have pushed for this, and like I said, I think a lot of it started with Brandon, memory eternal, as well as several others that have really paved the way, and we owe them a huge debt of gratitude. We really do. We owe them a huge debt of gratitude for being willing to work with these companies. But this is a novel idea, I think, for a lot of people that blind people will even want to play mainstream video games. Now, a lot of gamers have PCs now. A lot of the blind gamers have PCs now because they can play games with mods that certain people make to make them accessible, like World of Warcraft and Stardew Valley and things like, and Minecraft, I think, and things like that. I don't have that luxury. I'm a Mac user. But anyway, I hope that I have not come across as lecturing people, because that is not what I intended to do with this video. All I wanted to do was say that it's going to be slow going at first with this. It's going to be slow going. If there's access to the Nintendo Switch Online Classics thing, you can try to play the games that you grew up playing. I certainly will. I'm going to try Excite Bike and Punch Out and those were my favorite too. But I might try to play some other ones. But I would love to see College Slam become available on that Classics thing, because College Slam was another one of my all-time favorites. I used to play that all the time when I was at my cousin's house. So, anyway, Oh, and NFL Quarterback Club and Tecmo Super Bowl. Those were my three favorite games that I used to love to play on his SNES console. I used to love those games. So please don't go into this thinking that everything is going to work. Because I can tell you right now, as a PS5 and Xbox owner, not every game is going to be. In fact, the majority are not. They won't have talking screens. They don't have anything. You have to play from memory. You have to. A lot of it is guesswork. But that does not take away from my enjoyment of them. It never has. Are there games that I've struggled with? Yes. You know, I accidentally screwed up 13 Sentinels when I was trying to play it. You know, yeah, I accidentally messed it up. So there are ways to do it. And there are people that work their butts off to make guides for blind gamers that you can study and look at as you're playing. Or, you know, kind of, you know, pause and go back and forth. But we have seen major developments in accessibility over the past couple of years. I mean, Diablo 4, Marvel vs. Spider-Man 2, the latest Assassin's Creed game, which I understand has a bit of a ways to go, but the game came out of the box with some things accessible. Not everything, but it's at least doable from what I've heard from many people. So, you know, we're getting there as far as more and more games becoming playable by blind gamers, but we still have a long way to go. Especially as far as consoles go. I mean, PC, it's a little bit easier, but consoles, you know, we still have a bit of a long way to go. But, you know, I am not discrediting. I'm not trying to diminish people's excitement. You know, I think it is a wonderful thing that is going on. Okay. But what I would encourage you to do is please be patient. Get a console. Give them feedback. You know, whatever. But be patient. Above all else. Be patient. It's going to take some time. And just try not to lose your temper. You know, that's all I can say. So in a bit of personal news, I will say that things are starting to become clearer. Things are starting to sound clearer through the implant. I'm still dealing with a little bit of robotic sound, but things are beginning to. I'm starting to understand speech with a little bit more clarity, and I'm beginning to appreciate music again, because when I listen to music with the hearing aid and the implant, it sounds a lot richer than it did with regular hearing aids, and I'm hearing things again that I didn't catch before. You know, I know I have a long way to go when it comes to understanding music through the implant, but it's getting better very slowly. In a bit of sad news, Thunder over Louisville got canceled this year, which was supposed to be next Saturday, which is sad because I wanted to take the Hover Air up in my apartment parking lot and see if I could get panoramic video of the fireworks, but that is not going to happen, unfortunately. And it was canceled because of the flooding of downtown Louisville. I bought an accessory that will allow me to not have to hold the phone when I'm making videos, but I'm still trying to figure out how to work with it. And once I figure out how to work with it, I will do a demo of it on this channel and tell you about it, but I'm not ready for that yet. my friend and I are talking about our big coaster trip for this summer. We're trying to figure out where we're going to go. We're going to do probably one big trip in June, and so we'll see when that happens. We'll see where we go. I'm not sure where we're going to go, but we're throwing around some ideas on Thursday. So when that time comes, we will figure out where we're going to go. One possibility was starting in at Cedar Point, going up to Waldameer, and then going up to 3 different amusement parks in the Buffalo and Rochester, New York areas. The other possibility was doing Dorney Park in Allentown, Pennsylvania, then going up to Six Flags Great Adventure in New Jersey, then going to Coney Island in New York City and Adventureland on Long Island before ending the trip at Nickelodeon Universe, which is in New Jersey, just across the river from New York City. I believe it's in East Rutherford. So we have 2 different, those are the 2 main things that we're throwing around. In addition to maybe doing some other trips in between to local parks, and stuff like that. Kentucky Kingdom, Kings Island, and some other places. Possibly to Indiana Beach up in Monticello. So the other idea we had was doing Six Flags America in Maryland, and then going up to Busch Gardens, Williamsburg, and King's Dominion in Virginia. But we don't know. We don't know about what we're going to do yet. But those were just some of the ideas we were throwing around. So, anyway, I'm not sure when I'm going to do another video. And by the way, I know that a lot of people were hoping that I would do like the weekly chats and stuff that I promised I was going to do, but to be honest, there really isn't a lot to talk about every week. There was for a while when I was telling people about my implant progress and whatever, but I'm past the major stage of getting used to it, and I'm beginning to adapt and get used to it. But because I'm starting to adapt and adjust, and my implant appointments are getting fewer and fewer. So we don't know. I mean, I have a physical next Friday, but what's there to say about that? It's just it's a new patient physical at my new primary care provider that I've actually been seeing since January, but we wanted to get some other stuff. I wanted to get some other stuff taken care of before I had the physical, and we're going to do the physical next week. So, anyway, that's what's happening there. But I promise when I get this particular device working that I have that I just told you about, I might do a demo of either the PS5 or the Xbox and show people what it is like to try and play mainstream video games blind. And I'm not going to show the ones that have talking screens and whatever, because the reality of it is that most of them still do not. And so that's going to take some getting used to for people that are just now getting into this. And if you haven't owned a PS5 or an Xbox and have had experience with console screen readers, I understand why people may be disappointed that games won't talk right away. But the key word is right away. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. I am optimistic, though. Anyway, so I hope that everybody is... I hope that everybody is doing okay. I hope you enjoyed this. If you like this video, feel free to subscribe and click notifications so you don't miss anything. And like I said, I will figure out when my next video will be. It will be soon. I just need to figure out when. And I hope that that all of you have a great rest of your weekend. And I will see all of you later. Thanks for watching.